All right, this is going to be a little members only content because I'll include the location where I'm at. So I'm standing in a conservation biology area. So we basically designated this little corner of the property as limited or no access for humans. So what does that mean? So first off, it means the area is on a map. We're monitoring habitat. So I have cameras on the entry points. I don't have cameras on the exit points because of course it's the corner of the property. Somebody can go out in other places. And by the way, I'm Justin Hitt. I'm setting up a regenerative conservation area that includes active farming. And this property itself is already in the operation of farming, looking at biomass, mushroom harvesting, mushroom foresting, and foraging, and other conservation activities tied to the right to farm laws in the state of Virginia and the agricultural designation of the property. Now, I'm going to tell you why all that's important later. What I've discovered is someone has driven off my ATV trails or onto my ATV trails, and they have gone through the conservation area. So a conservation area is going to be no motorized vehicles. It'll be entry only for observation or collection. So if we were coming down here and doing a clean streams project, or for example, we were going to do a grass inventory, because we got a couple of different types of grass and we're reestablishing native grasses. If we were going to get some of this algae that's growing here and we were going to take it back to the Science Museum and do a study on it. I'm a master naturalist and I like this kind of stuff. So ultimately this area, because it's high slopes, and that's someone else's property over there, but because it's high slopes all around it and it has a spring, it's a wonderful observation site for deer counts, box turtle counts, salamander habitat. There's a number of salamanders in here. And we've just gotten started with our inventories. But again, you have to exclude the area, stay out of the area. And what's upset me so much here, and is actually a federal offense, because this again has been designated as a habitat restoration. It's not on a bunch of paperwork or anything. It's something a farm can do as part of their offsets. And so somebody thought it was a bright idea to ATV right through the middle of a wetland. Okay, now they may not have known it was a wetland. They may have just seen excitement, but we're going to talk a little bit about what that problem causes. So first off, we've got turkey tail down here. We've got a variety of mushroom habitat. We've got ferns. Look at these little ferns. Aren't those things a little beautiful? We've got a variety of grasses that are coming in. And because there's going to be no animal interactions, no domesticated or livestock interactions, this area is going to develop naturally. Now, we may come in here and remove evasives. There's some of that Japanese knotweed stuff down here. There's a couple other trees. So those might get cleaned up a little bit. But basically, it's a kind of a swamp. And so when you run ATVs through it, and I can take a picture of this and figure out the direction of the ATV here later. We're just going to finish up the video. But when you ride ATV through here, it makes these trenches. And obviously, it's been done more than once, because you can see the tracking is wide and the tracking is deep. It also has tracks in weird areas. Oh, sorry, Mr. Bog, I stepped on something there. And so you see these stagnant areas of water all the way up there. Now, this is a spring, so I have trickling water right here, which tells me there's that area all the way up in there, which we typically would not walk into for any reason. Because again, it's a protected habitat. You know, we'd really sit with binoculars on the hill over here and just scope it out. That's how it works. But I can see water dripping down this way, so it tells me that upslope is actually very wet and marshy. So again, we're going to walk on the outer edges. And it does look like, if we continue through here, and I'm walking a little fast, but if we continue through here, we can see other materials and how that track trails up the hill there. So the track kind of goes up a wet spot, trails up the hill up there. So in order for me to document that over there, if it's still on my property, because we're kind of in the corner of the property, I will need to go up and around to do that. Now, I found the site originally by following a fence line, and there's a fence that excludes this particular area. And before I get too far out here, because I'm tracking my movement with the GPS, you'll see things like animal tracks right here. Actually, looks like the ATV comes back up across the top there. But my point, here's my big point. So you're managing a piece of land, whether it's 5 acres or 500 acres, and you're going to divide that into different zones. So we're going to divide it up into the permaculture zones, like where zone 1 is your home, and zone 5 is like this. You know, it's sloped land. We don't want to be running animals up and down this. It's out in the middle of the woods. It might get timbered every 30, 40, 50 years, maybe. But it might have other areas like these marshes and stuff that are not good habitat for, basically for farming. See, they have this spring here, for example. Now, we can put a point well up the hill somewhere, but the spring is off limits because that's providing water for wildlife. And since this area is excluded, the wildlife can get to it without coming onto my farm property to get water. So we're now setting up established areas where we're not disturbing nature, and nature will be less likely to come and disturb our project. This area does have bear back here periodically. In fact, I don't know if you can pick it up with camera, but there are animal trails coming down that hill across like a 45-degree angle slope. And you can see tracks coming into this area. This area is a space where animals will come, habitate, have sex. I don't really know. But they're definitely going to get clean water. That water will not remain clean if there are ATVs driving through it, even once in a while, because it's turning up soil, it's disturbing the soil. And you can see down here all that young pick right there. That's the plants that are coming up. The leaves have been all eaten off because the deer come down here and eat. Now, areas like this, you see the turkey tail. Areas like this, we don't harvest mushrooms out of. We don't, we could hunt deer through here, but we need to count the number we have and count the number that come out. And it would be better if we get them when they're way up on the trails, because that's better. It's a better measure. We don't want to be contaminating the area. We don't want to be creating any behavioral pattern changes. You can see some areas in here where animals have trampled down the soil. That's why we're being real careful to see the ATV trails, the indentions of the trails, and to see that it's been done multiple times. This isn't a one-time event. And so what I'll do is I'll walk over the majority of the trails and GPS track. I'll get an idea what's going on, because I need to determine if people are coming onto the property or exiting the property. That's important. I need to know exactly where these trails are located and what's going on with the trails. You know, what is the extent of the movement? And then I'll go ahead and note it in our tracking logs. Because so one of the things that we're doing with a conservation area is we're tracking plant species, we're tracking animal species, we're tracking entries. So I'll make a note that we entered this property. Actually, this video serves as a note. And water quality. Now, I haven't done any water quality down here because this isn't quite a creek. It's more like just a trickle from a spring. But we would not dam the spring up. We would not do anything other than remove trash. So if there happened to be trash back here, which is a pretty secluded area, we would remove the trash, the bottles or anything like that. Now, why is it a federal offense? Well, all farms, all agricultural activities are required to follow the EPA Clean Water Act. All residential properties, all industrial and commercial properties to follow the Clean Water Act. And by running your ATV through water, and this is not a navigable stream, but it feeds something, you are now destructing habitat. The second factor is that we're following the guidelines of a conservation area. We've designated a conservation area. Now, I don't need to put up signage necessary, but I think I will, because obviously it's not clear. But we're doing a federally protected activity. And I'm cooperating with universities, conservation biologists, forestry department. You know, we're not going to plant new plants in here unless we clear them first. We're not going to remove plants out of here unless they've been cleared first. And it is a beautiful, this specimen caught me right here. Look at this little thing coming along here. I have no idea what it is. But you can see the little small oaks and the little small maples. And we might, segment off a square. We can see a vine growing up the tree here. We can see this interesting pine, this turtle shell with a little bit of rodent activity on it. We can see trees that have fallen over because their roots have rotted out. we can see that there are no paper birches here. Okay, and there's willows. I don't see any willows down here. So we have a marshy, wet area. Those plants tend to like those areas. We tend to have small little oaks, small little ferns. I think that's called deer tongue, that grass there. Oh, look at that. See, we could be out here looking at all these little plants, surveying them on a map, geocoding them, putting them into iNaturalist, for example. And if someone's coming through here with their ATV running over the ferns, it's going to mess up the samples, and it will be difficult for that data that rolls up. So as a citizen science project, the data is rolling up to federal and state level databases, and it could impact those databases. So what we're going to do here is document, clarify. We might have 3 or 4, master naturalists back here or something, but we're not going to bring vehicles back here. We're going to stop at the designated trail at the top of the hill, and we're going to walk down different ways every time to designated plots, which may or may not be staked, because today you could just use geocode. I could just geocode the corners and find the area. So the tips here for you, again, signage is important. Authorized users is important. Making it clear where people can go and where they can't go. So if you tell somebody who's an authorized user, so for example, hiking on the trails, and maybe this was a trail project with your city or a national park, you could say, hey, do not leave the designated trails. Okay, no reason to leave the designated trails, whether you're hiking, mountain biking, ATV, horseback riding, or anything else, do not leave the designated trails. Now in this case, someone left the designated trails, drove through a conservation area. Now I got a lot of extra work, and I'm not happy, as you can see. But you wouldn't be happy either, because you're investing your time, you're investing your money, you're investing your intelligence. This is more than a hobby. This is an agricultural farm activity, and someone has trespassed on that agricultural activity and thereby causing damage to such activity, because these trails don't look like damage, but do you see how they came down the hill? We've talked in trail design. You need to move on contours. Really, a trail that would get down here would come down on the ridge all the way down there and then come back on contour. It wouldn't just drive down the hill like an ATV person, somebody on an ATV would. Well, actually, not everybody on ATV, because some of the people that I work with, they use ATVs regularly, mini trucks, those little ranger vehicles, little tiny pickup trucks in the woods, and they know you drive down a ridge and you drive across a contour. So again, now if you're a member of Prosperity Homestead, www.prosperityhomestead.org, then we can go into more details, because I've got some slides set up for you guys. We can talk about restrictions, signage, how to shut down one of these trails, how to document one of these trails, how to use some of the different tools like OnX or Garmin GPS. And then when we have classes on site checking out trails, there are like 4 or 5 locations here, and then there's even locations like the Mayo River. There's hiking trails that we can work with their group and go out with their group and do the same thing that I'm doing here. So I'm managing this like a park. I'm managing it within the standards of the national, the Forestry Department, the federal and state guidelines. I'm gonna meditate a little bit before I track this out, because I'm frustrated. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of what we do. Every dollar in training and courses and everything goes into education, by the way, and it goes into conservation activities. So thank you again for buying the programs, doing the consultations, and working on your design plan for your own property. Questions at www.prosperityhomestead.org.